Okay. Welcome everyone to our Arts and Media Alumni panel today as part of our recruitment week. We're very excited to have our former alumni here to talk about their experience during their college time here at Sacred Heart, but then also their path that they've taken, also to provide you with any advice and insight into the industry that they are in. So to let you know who we have here today, we have Kieran, who currently works for GMA, ABC News. We have Christian working for WFSB here in Connecticut. And we have Corey, who is working for Alcone in their design area. So we are very excited to cover all topics of arts and media today. So what we'd like to do is to start out by asking you all to tell us a little bit about your current role, kind of what your day-to-day is like, what you do, and also how your experience at Sacred Heart has played a role in, where you were then and where you are now. So I'm going to start with Kieran, and I'm going to ask you to go first.
Great. Yeah. Hi, I'm Kieran. I graduated in 2015 from Sacred Heart. I had a great experience there. I was involved in student government, the student union. I played football, a bunch of other things too. I'm now a producer at Good Morning America. As far as my day-to-day, it's the best part of my job is that every day is different. One day we're working on politics, the next day I'm doing a piece about Star Wars or the Avengers or Marvel. I love the varieties, and Sacred Heart, being involved as much as I was, really helped me set up for a career. It helped open doors for internships. It helped me learn how to work in a day-to-day environment where we're telling stories, and that's really what I do. I just tell stories. So I'm very lucky.
Great, thank you, Kieran. And Christian, I'll have you introduce yourself now.
Hi there, I'm Christian. I graduated 2017. It feels like forever ago, but it's good to be back. Thank you so much. It's good to see familiar faces. I remember Amy, Mike, and Kieran too. I remember he was, I think, the president of the media club like my freshman year, which is weird. So right now I'm a reporter, a nighttime reporter for Channel 3 Eyewitness News. So we cover the state of Connecticut. Like Kieran said, every day is super different. One day is like flooding. The next day is like taxes. The other day is like 3 people have died in Hartford, so we have to go cover it. So it's really just, I think that's the best part about the job too, and one of the reasons I wanted to do it is because every day is so different, and it kind of keeps us going and keeps us busy.
I'm sure you're always working around the clock, and it's never stops. And
yeah, never stops.
Many of us.
And when it comes to Sacred Heart, one of the things that we really learned was like writing, and one of the courses was like news writing and reporting, and I think that's one of the best classes that I took there because it really taught me like what's a story. Like every day you have to write, and like every day you're on deadline, and I remember just like the mistakes that I did writing in college, and it's like it doesn't even make sense. And just like now it's like every day you have to write, like every hour, just to make sure you write a script, or like you send an email requesting like please talk to me today. So for sure, like Sacred Heart played a major role in like what we do today.
I'm glad you said that. Thank you, because it's one of the things that we've actually been mentioning to students is that if you can write, it becomes so valuable in any job setting that you have. And you may not realize it now while you're in school because you're focusing on, okay, I'm going to be, doing graphic design. I'm going to be a TV producer, but you do need to have those writing skills. So definitely take advantage of that.
And going off that, sorry to keep talking,
no,
but with the writing and just how every day is so different, like we were I was so focused at Sacred Heart to learn about media and learn how to shoot a camera and learn about like storytelling that you kind of forget about other topics. And like the other day I had to do research about the governor like passing some tax cuts, and I had no idea what he was talking about, like Miller rate and things like that. So it's like you have to do your own research, and it's like they didn't tell us that at Sacred Heart. So for sure, just like don't just focus on like media.
That's great. Thank you, Christian. And then Corey.
Hi. So I graduated from Sacred Heart in 2009 with my bachelor's in graphic design. Currently, I'm a senior art director at an advertising and marketing agency. I'm working on brands that are ranging from fast food restaurants to state lottery programs. So every day is different in the aspect of what you're working on, but there also is structure to what I'm doing, working with conceptors and copywriters, coming up with ideas, executing them, leading photo shoots if we need to capture photography, and things like that. And I think that my involvement in Sacred Heart, I mean, I was attended like every student life activity. I love bingo. And it's so silly, but just all that networking really helps you to make connections and work on your presenting skills and interpersonal skills. Also, I was part of the yearbook committee and the magazine, which helped me in the design aspect of it and really growing that professional skill. And then I also studied abroad in Dingle, which was incredible. And I just needed to put that in there.
Oh, that's fantastic. I know there's probably students on here who are going to be studying abroad, who did already, or who are really looking forward to it. So yes, if you can take advantage of that, it just kind of really opens up your networking, your ability to be involved in the community, and really shows a variety on your resume for sure. Corey, I'm going to start with you and go kind of backwards. What do you find the most challenging or rewarding with the job that you have now, or maybe one that you've had in the past?
I'll stick with the current job. So I think the most rewarding is seeing your ideas actually coming to life. So you have this idea in a brainstorm meeting, and then you collaborate with all these people, and your hard work that you put into it, and then seeing like the poster that you designed for a fast food restaurant hanging up in their window, or their menu board that you design, and you go through their drive-through and you're like, wow, I like designed all of that. So I think that that's definitely the most rewarding. The most challenging probably is working with different types of people. And I think that the way to overcome that is just being open to ideas and to other people's ideas.
Absolutely. Thank you. Christian.
Let me unmute myself. I think the most rewarding thing is that like every day you have a different story to tell. And I think just the learning aspect, like learning about tax cuts, like it is challenging for me. It is super boring, but it's also like super, like I'm so into just learning and keep on learning more. So, and that's one of the reasons that makes the job exciting. Just learning more, and also just like meeting people and telling people stories. I mean, people are trusting you with like confidential stuff or some deep problems that they just went through. They lost their house, and then you're trying to convince them to like, hey, I know you're feeling what you're going through, but could you talk to me in an interview? Like maybe like people want to hear that, and people want to hear, maybe they could help you out. So I think that's just, it's just an honor for us to like tell stories every day. So I think that's for sure rewarding. And then especially when they are grateful, or maybe sometimes you screwed up and you're like, why'd you say that? And it's like, so I mean, it's for sure just super rewarding the job. But I think the most challenging is like you have to be ready for everything. Like you think that you have your day super set and like you have all your interviews done, like you just wrapped up a script. This happened last week. You have like your script done and you're live in 2 hours, or you're live in an hour. And then a producer calls you and says, oh, there's a shooting or there's a fire. And you're like, no, like it's something that I'm working on. It's like, come on. It's like, I could literally go live and give you like a full 2-minute story. And they're like, no, like this is happening. And like, you have to go like drive like an hour to somewhere else and like, and do a whole different story. And the other story, like all the work that you did basically just like out the window. So I think you just really, this job really prepares you for just, you have to be ready for everything. So I think that's the most challenging part.
Thank you. It sounds like it can be.
Fun, right?
Kieran.
For me, the most rewarding is the impact that our stories get to make. When I first started my first job out of college, I was working in sports in Boston, NESN, New England Sports Network. And I found this story and I followed it around for months. It was with this little boy who needed a heart transplant. And basically, I followed it around from February until August. And he had the heart transplant, and there were some viral moments that came out. Basically, found out he was getting it, and he's like, does that mean we can go to a Red Sox game? And he had this viral video, and I was like, I need to find this kid because NESN is obviously owned by the Red Sox. So I reached out in February. I worked on it. Basically, he got released from the hospital. More viral videos come out. The Red Sox, Christian Vasquez, Xander Bogaerts go to his house. and told me he's going to throw out the first pitch. And that's when I get my interview scheduled to go interview him and his parents. And within that time period, he passed away. He rejected the heart, and it was devastating. It was very sad. But I texted the parents. I said, we don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I'd love to. And they ended up sitting down with me a few days after his funeral. And it was like a poignant interview. It was great. It felt really natural. And getting them to, like Christian said, getting them to open up and feel comfortable with me was really rewarding. And I did that piece, and it was great. You know, I still get choked up talking about it and watching it. At that point, I knew I wanted to work on more stories like that. So I started applying to networks to work on, you know, I interviewed at GMA, and I told my boss, my current boss, I said, he's like, why do you want to leave sports? And I was like, sports are fun, and I love sports. I've always loved sports, but I want to work on things that matter. And I sent him a bunch of my pieces that I had done at Nesson, and one of them was the one on Ari, the one that I was telling you about. And he sent me an email, and he said, you've made all of Boston cry. Get ready to make all of America cry. And I was like, wow, that's really powerful. And now, you know, day to day, you know, we are working on hard news some days, but a lot of things that I focus on are what we call our second hour stories, because second hour is kind of a different type of show compared to the first hour of GMA. And, you know, we just did a really rewarding leading up to the Super Bowl, a bunch of segments. And I got to surprise two people with Super Bowl tickets who were just really deserving people who had just gone above and beyond for other people. And, you know, I did this piece last week, actually, or whatever the Super Bowl was, a couple weeks ago. And it was about this man he was a Marine. He served his country, defended all of us. And then he gets back and he takes a job working on a train yard, and there was an accident and he lost both his legs. And when he woke up, and his best friend was there to break the news to him. That's kind of how the doctors wanted to break the news to him. And his reaction was like, you know what? I'm going to help other people get through what I'm going through. And he founded this wheelchair football league. And, you know, basically we told that story. We interviewed people around him. He knows we're doing a story. He thinks it's on the wheelchair football league. He has no idea it's about him. So we interviewed his daughter, his brother-in-law, his people who he's actually helped who became disabled. And then he helped get into wheelchair football so they could feel some sense of normalcy, some sense of community. And, you know, I that piece aired, and then I watched it again that night with my fiance. And I got choked up watching it, just seeing his reaction, seeing like this piece, and like the way I was able to get to him without even talking to him. And he got emotional, he got choked. This is a Marine getting ready to cry on national television. And then I go on Twitter and I read the comments, and seeing that piece, not only did it mean a lot to Mr. Salgado, the Marine, but it meant a lot to millions of people who watched it, saying this had me crying this morning. This had me doing this. And I was like that's what matters. I get to work on things that matter, that impact people's lives, and shine a light on good people doing good things. Also, you know, with the new stuff, you shine a light on bad people doing bad things too. But the rewarding part for me is being able to feel like I'm making a difference in people's lives through my stories. Most challenging, you know, I think it's getting people to connect. You know, people talk, and then they get on camera and it's different. And you have to break down those walls. One of my favorite stories I did was a Make-A-Wish story in Michigan. It was out in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And we got to the house. It was me and my crew. And I told the crew, I got to set up, but I'm interviewing a 5-year-old with cancer. So, and that's never easy. 5-year-olds, first of all, never want to talk. You know, they're never comfortable on camera because they're 5. And all this little girl had gone through. So I told the crew to set up. I told them what I wanted in the shot outside. And for the next 45 minutes, I went inside and I just played with the little girl. And I was able to break down those walls. And like, she's like, to this day, like she's you know, I follow her family on Facebook and always commenting back and forth. And you build those relationships that sometimes it's challenging, but if you can figure out how to break down those walls, that's how you get to the heart of a story. That's how you can find your, you know, I hate to call them characters because they're real people, but that's how you find the characters in your story, and you can connect with all the, you know, all the viewers watching. The GMA, we're blessed to have about, you know, between 3 and 4 million viewers every morning, plus our social audience, plus the streaming audience, is a whole different venture in television nowadays. And people are still trying to figure out how to grasp that. But the hardest part is breaking down those walls, but if you can do it, you can tell a compelling story and a rewarding story.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds, that everyone's going to have their own challenges and rewards with, and it may be combined in the same, project that you're working on, whether it's TV or graphics and all that, and to be able to see the outcome of what it does for people, see your work, like it is such a rewarding thing. So, we want our students to find value in that as they start looking and really kind of exploring different opportunities and seeing what it's like to be part of something that maybe they didn't think was possible or in their purview. So that kind of leads me to our next question. And I'm going to have Corey start this one off. Can you kind of share a little bit about, maybe if you had any internship experience or how you got into your first job out of college? And if you have any advice for students who are looking for an internship or looking for their first full-time job?
Yeah, so my senior year, I actually got to intern at a advertising agency that was really well known in the area. And from there, I was really able to see what the day-to-day was like. It was a great experience. It was a summer internship that then turned into a fall internship. So definitely grateful for opportunities like that. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Any advice that you have for students looking for internships or their first full-time job as they go through that process?
Yeah, I think just to be open to anything. When I graduated, it was 2009. It was a recession. There were no jobs to be had. I actually had to sell couches for 3 months until I could find something in my field. So I think not to be discouraged if you don't get what you're looking for, but keep working towards that because you'll ultimately get there.
Thank you. And Christian, do you mind answering that one too?
Yeah, of course. So during Sacred Heart, I did 3 internships. I did a Univision station, and then I did a local TV station, Channel 8, which is actually my competition station now. And then I did my senior year, I did ABC News, actually, I think on the other office downtown for you, Karen. But it was that kind of led me towards where do I want to go now? After during senior year, I was like, am I ready for a job? I know I wanted to do local journalism and I wanted to be on TV, but I just didn't know if I was comfortable and I was ready for it. And I'm such an overthinker. I want to make sure which is good and bad. So then I was like, you know what? I need grad school. So I started applying for grad schools, and I got accepted to the Columbia Journalism School, and I did that for a year. And after that, I was like, you know what? I feel comfortable now to learn, go out in the world and try to get my first job. But even after grad school, which you think it's oh, you're going to get a job right after college. Even after grad school, I got my first internship. And it's like Corey mentioned, you really have to just go for it and try new things. So one of the things, there's different fields if you want to go to, if you want to be on TV, basically. So, I mean, one way you could do local journalism and start at a super low market, let's say Kansas and things like that, and then make your work. If your end goal is national and end up at ABC, then that's kind of your goal. But for me, I just wanted to do journalism. So I went to Miami. I did an internship there for a few months. And then I started putting my video all together. I did a YouTube reel. And actually my first boss found me on YouTube, and she found my work. She emailed me and she said, hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing with your life. Can I interview you? So she flew me down to Texas. And I was like, oh my God, I'd never been more west than Florida. So I was like, I'm an East Coaster. So I was like, I mean, I have no idea where this part of Texas is. So I went to before Thanksgiving one year, I went for the interview, and I was like, oh, this is a really nice area. And thank God I accepted the job because I met my best friends there. It was an amazing time. And I mean, you never know what you're gonna go through and where you're gonna end up and the lessons that you're gonna learn. So I did Texas for 2 years, and then I felt like I wanted to try something different. I was covering immigration there, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But again, you because of the job, you're so used to trying new different things. So I was like, you know what, it's time for a change again. So then I moved, Connecticut opened up, and I was like, let's go back to Connecticut. So luckily, it's good to be here with my family, but it's when it comes to media world, you have to kind of risk some things, at least if you're going into local TV or journalism overall. maybe you might want to start maybe behind the scenes at maybe like a market. And I have seen that route, and eventually you end up like on TV, or like you start off somewhere random, like, and work your way up. So I think you really have to be open, but don't be afraid of that, because once you leave your comfort zone, like, you really grow personally, you gain more confidence. And also the stories, I think that's the most important part of what we do, is just the people that we meet every day. And like, there's different people here than there are in California. So it's like, just learning different stories across the nation is, I mean, it's incredible. So don't be just focused on like, oh my God, I need to find a job in Connecticut, or I need to find a job next to my parents. Maybe give it a little chance and try for 1 year, because I don't think you won't regret it.
Right. This is the time to venture out, explore, take advantage.
Go crazy.
And Kieran?
Yeah. So my internship experiences were a little different. I had a lot of internships. I started my first internship after freshman year. I had 8 internships. And I started in radio, doing video work for radio. And then I kind of, worked all over. But the best internship experiences came from people at Sacred Heart. Dr. Miller specifically, he was one who put me up for a bunch of them. The first one he did that I was really appreciative for was, I think the first one was MSG. And it was a program that was geared towards, that's Madison Square Garden. And it was a program geared towards exclusively for grad students. And I went there my senior year, and I basically I went, it was like a day trip. We met with an alumni from Sacred Heart who was working at MSG. And they gave us a tour. They talked about the internship program, but they were very much like, you're probably not going to get this internship. So it was me, a few other undergrads, and then a bunch of grad students who had went, and I applied, and I was the only one who got an interview, and then I got the internship. And I asked the HR director why, and he's like, well, because you had outside internship experience. So a lot of people have, and I'm not, because I had a bunch of Sacred Heart internships too. I interned in the marketing department, stuff like that. But they said it looks better on paper if you have outside experience than you're just on campus, because then it's kind of like you're going to a class, whereas you're going out in the real world. So I interned at radio stations in New York and Philadelphia, and they said that's what put me above other candidates. And I guess they just liked me in my interview, and they gave me that job, and that was great. That ended up that internship expired at the end of my first semester senior year, and they ended up making it a paying job as a logger, which was great experience on my resume. We're watching Knicks and Rangers games, which, to be honest, I was going to be doing anyway. So it was, that was a great experience. That was all because Dr. Miller put me up for it. Then another one was when Bobby Valentine became athletic director. He, I went up to him. I was like, I want to work for you. And he hired me as a production assistant for he has a media company called Makahari Media. And they had done some great documentary. That's how I knew about it. There was a documentary called The Zen of Bobby V. That was done by this guy, Andrew Moscato, who Bobby ended up forming a team with and creating this production company. And we did basically we worked on some of the documentaries they were working on, and then we did I had the idea to do a baseball show with Bobby. So I would bring my cameras up to Bobby's office, and we would just talk baseball for an hour, and then I'd cut it down to like a little 5 to 10 minute video, and it did pretty well on social. It was fun. I created a logo in After Effects. I don't know if you know Bobby, but he got thrown out of a baseball game. He was the Mets manager and came back wearing like Groucho Marx sunglasses. I did a fun logo with that. We had a lot of fun with it. And Bobby is now a connection I'll have for the rest of my life. I text him every now and again, and he's a great guy. But that was all because Sacred Heart opened that door when he became athletic director. I went up and just was like, hey, I'm a big Mets fan. And I want to work for you. So that was great. And then my first job actually came from another thing that Dr. Miller, it was something like this, I'm sure, where there's an email that goes out, and it was Nesson is looking for the best filmmakers in New England. And I know Sacred Heart's not technically in New England, but it's a gray area. So I applied. I went to the presentation. It was in, where was I? I think it was in Curtis Hall, I think. And I went, and they wanted a 6-minute documentary about sports, and you could do whatever you want. There's a lot of leeway there. So I had gone to high school with a guy who plays in the NHL now. His name's Johnny Gaudreau. So I sent him a text, and I was like, hey, Johnny, can I, you want to come down to the hockey rink back home, and I'll interview you? He's like, yeah, dude, whatever. So I did a documentary there, and I was actually on a TV show my senior year called Nesson Next Producer. And I was one of the winners. Basically, they copped out. It's supposed to be the winner gets $20,000 in a job. So it was down to me and a team from BU. The girls from BU got the money, and I got the job, which is perfect. This is exactly what I needed. So I actually got that call that I had gotten the job, and what my first job would be as I was driving up to Sacred Heart for senior week, which is really cool. I pulled over on the side of the Merritt and I'm like, I can do my senior week stuff and not have to worry about nothing. So that was a fantastic experience, and all those opportunities, and then from Nesson, I was able to turn that into a reel enough to get me an interview with GMA, and all of those steps led to the next step in my career. And I think the best advice I would give is keep an eye out, intern, do the stuff that others won't. My last semester, senior year, I was only on campus on Wednesdays because I had an internship with a director, Darren Aronofsky. During the day, at night, that was in Brooklyn. At night, I would go over to Madison Square Garden. I would work those games. And then I had to get, I only needed a certain amount of credits to finish, and I would load that all in Wednesday. And then I'd go back. So the only day I was in Connecticut was on Wednesdays. And I think like that may sound hard and may sound like tough, but do it, because that's what's going to lead you to look good on paper. Because I'm sure as soon as you get in the interview room, they're going to like you. You know what I mean? It's just about getting in that interview room. And if you can have that internship experience and prove that you've done stuff outside of the classroom, outside of the basic curriculum, prove you're going above and beyond, you'll get in that interview room. And that's sometimes that's all it takes.
I think for sure, going off that with just leaving Sacred Heart, I mean, Sacred Heart teaches you the foundation of what we do. I mean, shoot, edit, to tell a story. But I think from what I learned, I think it's so important just to leave Sacred Heart in a way that when you do those stories and you present this portfolio, like you're not just showing like your Greek life story that you did with AD Pi. Like I think that it's a good practice, and no offense to AD Pi, I was in Greek life, but you learn the basics of shooting and editing, what's a good story in a sense, like get creative and things like that. But when you're going to, let's say, like, I don't know, CBS News, and you say like, hey, like I just featured AD Pi, it's like, they're like, I don't care. Like, show me the things that you do differently. So I wish I did more of that. I think I only did one story with the Bridgeport Police Department for my senior project. And I did like a ride along with them. And they taught me about just crime in the city and things like that. And I actually I actually got that connection from my criminal justice professor, because I took on a criminal justice double major, and I made that connection with the professor, and I was able to do this ride along with them. But I think just creating stories, I mean, you're in Bridgeport, you're whatever you want to call it, Bridgeport, Fairfield, but you're in two of the biggest cities in Connecticut that are filled with stories. I mean, either crime or, I mean, positive stories as well. So I think go out to your community and just like start making these connections. I know like I also would interview like the Justice Center regards to like dating violence and things like that. So I think my phone fell, but I think it's just important to just present all this, because that's going to make you look different than all the millions of college students that are also wanting that one job. And I also think leaving your comfort zone, I think is for sure beneficial. Let's say if you're just so focused on sports or like on a particular topic, like I think for me, I was just so focused on like news that one day I did a story about like revenge porn, and I did a feature about this survivor that her husband was like would take pictures of her when they were together. It was consensual, but obviously when they broke up, it was no longer consensual, and he shared all the pictures everywhere. And just telling that story, my first news director told me, she's like, I was impressed by that story, because I mean, you're a guy, usually like it's like taboo to talk about specific stories, but the fact that you're comfortable talking to a revenge porn victim and also a survivor of sexual assault, or maybe a cancer patient or a sports director, I think it's so important just to be open and not so close-minded when you're going into this field, because you're going to experience so many different things in one day. So I think just be open, and for sure use social media to your advantage. Like I said, like YouTube helped me, which is, I mean, who uses YouTube back then? And now it's super popular right now, because I know a lot of news channels are going on YouTube. So for sure, just use social media to your advantage.
And one more thing I just wanted to say about advice is, highlight those things about you that are interesting that other people may not know. Like Christian, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you're bilingual. and that sets Christian apart and makes, because now he can bring something else to a newsroom. If you're into something that you may think is weird, talk about it, because you never know where that value lies.
And going off of that, I think it's so important just to be yourself, because I think that's one thing that I struggled with in the beginning. It's like, I have to sound like a reporter and I have to sound like I'm official. But I think right now people are not looking for that. They're looking for individuality. I mean, look at these influencers on TikTok. They have more followers than like ABC News and everybody combined. It's like people are watching TikTok and they don't watch the 6 o'clock news that I show up in. It's like, so just be different and be unique. Because I think if you present yourself and you bring all this to the table, I think it's going to make you look so much better. And like Kieran actually mentioned, I am bilingual with Spanish, and just using that as well. It's like, don't be afraid when you go into a newsroom and you are Puerto Rican, whatever you are, just use that and say like, hey, like I could tell stories in both languages, and like, yeah, I'm 26 years old, or at the time I'm 21 years old, but like I could do this and that, and like someone else can't, and they're probably like 50 years old. So you just don't be afraid. Also the age thing, you're going to go into a newsroom or wherever you are, that just because you're coming out of college that they're like, oh, like this is the new kid, or like, but don't be afraid, because you have so much more, especially in the media field. I mean, a lot of the older people are trying to catch up with what we know. I remember I interned at a newspaper, and the photographers that were used to taking award-winning pictures for a front page newspaper are forced to learn video. If not, they have to lose their job. So it's like, so just adapting to the digital world. And like, I mean, I suck at TikTok, but that's one thing that I've been trying to do, is like get more involved on TikTok, get more involved on social media. So I think just like adapting to the changes, I think it's going to make you a good candidate as well.
That is all such like valuable information. We couldn't have said it better. It's just definitely, take advantage and be yourself. So thank you guys for answering that. I did want to ask a question, because I know a lot of our students are maybe unsure about their confidence of what they could do out once they graduate, or to find an internship, and sometimes are hesitant to apply because they may not check all the boxes. So asking Corey first, when you were going into like graphic design and knowing maybe what direction you wanted to go in, if a student maybe doesn't have all of the experience in certain software platforms or different skill set, how do you feel about that? Is it still something that students could still go for and learn along the way? Like, what have you learned?
Yeah, so I think that from my experience, sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
It's okay.
That not knowing the programs is not a problem. I think it's more of you coming in with the fresh ideas, and you will find help along the way to help get it done. So definitely don't let this whole software programming end of it kind of scare you away. And in design, like there's so many different areas, right? There's like graphic design. From there, you can go into interior design. It's endless. So I think being able to have an open mind and trying each thing, you might be surprised of what you may enjoy more than another area.
That's really helpful, because I think sometimes you can get nervous to go if it says you need to know something, but it's more about kind of just being open to learning and talking about that. So it's good to hear, like an entry-level job, like students should apply for them and just go through.
Yeah, and even showing the initiative too, that, hey, I'm not a master in it, but when I saw it was on the job listing, I downloaded the program and I'm learning now. So just to show that you're taking that initiative.
I love that. That's a great piece of advice for sure. And Christian, as far as skill set going into this field, thinking about your experience, like what do you see as far as like with hiring managers or entry-level positions? What would you recommend in that sense?
I think you have to also not lie to them, but also just be open, like say like, hey, I already downloaded that program and I'm learning it, or like I'm a fast learner, and just, I mean, you are going to learn that program, but just prove to them that you're working towards what they're looking for. And also you'll find this a lot if you're going into like local TV or local stations, or even at the national level as well, like seeking like 2 to 5 years experience, like working on TV, or like seeking 3 to 5. And it's like, just give me 1 year. Like I just graduated. So it's like, let me prove to you. But I think they just put that to put that, but some people are like, let's say in Connecticut, like I think you probably needed like 5 to 7 years, but because the times are changing and the industry is changing, it's like people are hiring younger people, especially for the media world, than they used to do like 10 years ago. Like I remember my other station in Texas, it was usually like you have to be really good to be accepted into this station. But obviously now they were more open to accepting recent college grads because we're just better. No, but I mean, we could prove ourselves that we're so much stronger, and we could do the same thing that, again, older people. No offense on the older people, but so I just think you have to be just confident in what you bring to the table and be open to learn, because obviously, like I'm not the greatest reporter, and I know there's so many people out there that are super better, but I'm not going to tell myself that, because that's not going to make me grow. Just like be accepting, learn from the people who are super good in the newsroom, and you're like, wow, like I want to be like them. But before you get the job, I think just be open and be confident. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. It's like you have to move on. There's so many doors that close, but a lot of will open.
Thank you. And Kieran, do you have any input on that?
Yeah, the hardest part of getting a job is getting an interview, I think. And the best way to get the interview is to use your connections. If you can stand out to somebody, you'll get the interview. And once you get in the interview, it's on you, man. You know, you can make that human connection, break down those barriers, sell yourself. One of the reasons you pick a college obviously is education, but I think the other one is community and the alumni reach. And that's a great thing that Sacred Heart has. I used it when I was looking for my jobs, and students use it with me. I'm constantly getting messages from students on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, I'm an XYZ at Sacred Heart. What advice can you give me?" And while I may not be in a position to hire them, I may know people who do. And you can make those connections. And sometimes it's just that Sacred Heart connection is enough. I think that's very important, is utilize your connections and make sure that those connections are just so utterly important to getting in that interview room.
Yes, networking is key, and certainly something we promote and encourage our students to do. And so that kind of leads me to this next piece. Knowing that we have a bunch of students who are here on this call, I want to open it up to any questions that you may have for our panelists. We encourage you to unmute yourselves if you're comfortable doing that. Feel free to just ask a question, or you could put something in the chat, but this is your chance. Ask any questions, whether it's in the media, the graphic design world. Let's see what you have and if there's any way that they can help you out.
Hi, Amy, can I start?
Hey, Amy, of course, go for it.
I kind of have a two-part question, and this is just open for anyone. How do you deal with getting that no? I know, Christian, you kind of explained a little bit of it, but like from companies, that must be tough, like not getting that, especially if you're putting application after application out. And then if you do have multiple offers on the table, what are some of those deciding factors that you guys had to deal with, like company values, location, market size, benefits, stuff like that?
Well, it's always good when you have multiple offers, right? Like I think it's going to happen at least once in a lifetime. Hopefully it happened to me once. But I think that's when you have to kind of negotiate. Let's say like if you have 2 stations, one in West Haven and one in Hartford, let's say, you basically, like, money comes into it. Once you get better, and once you, maybe that first year, don't fight too much for the money. If you're going into journalism, you're not doing it for the money, first of all. But these are things that once you get really good and you say like, listen, I got this and I got that, like you could present yourself better and your portfolio is better and can speak for yourself and say like, hey, I want more money. Like I want $20 instead of $5 an hour. Like you could start negotiating that way. Also with like time off, you could say like, hey, like I want a month time off versus the 2 days that you're giving me. So I think once you like get that first and maybe second job, if you're going into like the media part that I'm in, maybe you look better and then you could kind of fight for yourself. So I think that's kind of how you deal with offers, and also think ahead. I always thought like thinking ahead is so important. Like, how is this place gonna like help me reach my end goal, or like how is this gonna benefit me, maybe personally or maybe professionally? So I think like accepting that job in Texas, obviously like my passion is to tell stories in Spanish and English, but it's a super random place in Texas. Like I've never been there, but the benefit of it is like I got to do English and Spanish news. I learned so many things about immigration that I didn't know, and it also it went along with my passion, which to tell stories. So I think it works like that. Like maybe this other station in, I don't know, Canada, like I wasn't going to gain, maybe it's a stronger market. Maybe so many people watch that station, but just the benefit of it, like, is it really beneficial for you to go? Like, I feel like you're learning more in Texas than going to Canada, let's say. And I think when you get no's, like it's hard. Like you might cry, you might break down, you might go to your parents. You're going to call mom and dad a lot, but just be open to it and just being confident. I think just not letting, like, one thing that one reporter told me, that he was older than me, is always never forget like why you started. And even if you get no's, even if you get like the bad comments, like on social media, so many people are going to go on Twitter and just say like how terrible job you did, or like fake news and things like that. But you always have to remember like why you started and why you're doing this. And I think that's what's going to keep you going and keep driving you. Because if you let everything kind of fog up your mind, it's like you have to be ready for the media world, basically. It's amazing, but it could also be a little tough.
Yeah, I would say attitude is everything. If you're gonna let a no take you down, you're gonna have a hard time recovering from it. Just realize that, oh, okay, you just made a mistake. I'm gonna find someone who's not gonna make a mistake, and just keep that attitude about it, because you don't want to get yourself down. In the end, it's just you in your own head. You gotta get through that and keep going. As far as job offers, you gotta think about what's good for you. If you weigh your options, if I don't know, for example, my sister does the same thing Christian does. And she originally had 2 job offers for her first job, one in Bakersfield, California, one in Roanoke, Virginia. And she weighed a bunch of options based on market size. She looked at the talent who had started in Roanoke versus the talent who had started in Bakersfield and where their trajectories went. And she figured out that Roanoke was a much better place for her, because the talent from there typically went to top 30, and then a top, did different market size. So she weighed those options based on others' perspectives. She also talked to mentors, and you're gonna get mentors along the way, mostly through internships. Honestly, a lot of times with professors. I know. Miller and me were tight when I was in school, and I used to ask Miller a lot of those questions, and he always had a funny way of answering that wouldn't make sense in the moment, and then like 3 hours later, I'd be like, "That's what he meant," and so like I would just talk to people, and for me, family is always good too, because if sometimes family know you better than you know yourself. So if I have an issue, I'll call my mom, I'll call my sister, I'll call my brother and my uncle, and I'll say, what do you think I would do? And then that can help clear things up. But the main thing is don't ever get down on yourself. Know that you're gonna everything always works out in the end, even if it doesn't. You know what I mean? So I would just say keep your good attitude up.
I think it's not always apples to apples either, like comparing 2 jobs. You're going to want to go with like what's in your heart and your gut telling you, and what you have the most passion for. Cause I feel like you'll ultimately be successful at that. And where you're going to learn the most. From an agency standpoint, like, also, do you align with the clients, who they work for and their values? Cause you're doing work for them as well.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Maisie. Does anyone else have any questions? Feel free to unmute, put it in the chat. We still have a little time.
Hi, can I jump in?
Absolutely.
And this is open for anybody. In the media world, when you guys go out, do your stories, research your topics, and organize your questions, your scripts, and all that kind of extra work, do you also have to surround yourself with a crew, group of people before you, I guess, get into the positions that you are in, to help you evaluate your work and to make everything uh, comprehensive and cohesive for you guys to follow through.
So are you asking if when they're going out on an assignment, or was this like
Yeah.
prior to finding a job?
On assignment, sorry, on assignment.
So the way usually, I don't know if I understood your question correctly, but you could follow up. When we do stories, we go out with like whoever, basically who we're assigned to. So let's say if we're covering a story about, I don't know, COVID and cases arising, we usually go, like we try to find a doctor, like we hit up our own contacts. Let's say if you have a doctor in mind at Yale and you want to interview them, like hopefully they answer. Another tip, we are very dependent on other people's times to get our final product. So you really have to be patient. And like when you start off the day, you need patience. You need to pack your patience. So I think usually how it works is like if you have those interviews lined up and you interview them, the photographer, like right now I'm night side, so I have that same photographer Monday to Friday. In my other station, it was completely random. So let's say I might get Peter one day and I get Tom the other day. So you really have to have also your patience, because you're going to be dealing with so many different type of people. Maybe one is younger, he likes to bowl, I don't know, like they could easily connect with you, but maybe the other person is super strict and like there's no games. We shoot the story and we come back to work. So and that's it, like no conversations. So it's like you have to be really open to the different type of people in your newsroom. I don't know if I answered it correctly.
For me, as far I you were breaking up a little bit when you asked the question, but I remember I heard you say cohesion with crews, right? So for me, I work in a bit of a different environment where I could be like, I just flew in from Yellowstone. I was in Montana and Wyoming all week. So we have what's called the logistics desk. We reach out to them and they kind of know about us and they know about the crews. They know who we work well with. They know that kind of thing. So I have, now at this point in my career, I've been doing it for like 4 or 5 years at GMA. I have my favorite crews in each region of the country. For instance, this week I was with this guy, Tom and Andy, audio and video guys. We do freelance crews, so it's different than Christian. I think Christian would probably have all staff crews there. But we do freelance crews. So we, I know what Tom likes. Tom is, he's an outdoorsy guy. So I know I want to talk to him about outdoor stuff and we can gel and vibe on different things. It's all about creating that cohesion with people, and you're not always going to mesh with everyone you work with, and that's fine. In certain instances, you're lucky enough to choose who you work with, and others you're not. And I think it's all about finding that common ground. It's like anything else, like with school, you're not always going to like your classmates. You're not always going to like the people who get teamed up in group projects, but you're all striving towards a common goal. And if you can strive towards that common goal and find that middle ground, as a producer, that's kind of my job. Is if there's an issue on a set, I figure out what that issue is and how it can work for everybody. And that's really your job, is to create that cohesive working environment within your crew so that you can all strive towards that end goal of a perfect piece or telling the story in the best way it can be done.
And I think also if something is wrong, I think don't be afraid to also say it. The way our station works is that we have producers that are in charge of the show. So like, let's say I'm calling my producer and saying like, hey, we can't find anybody to talk about this fire. And they're like, no, like you need to find, like, I'm sure they're there. It's like, no, like we're here on the ground. Like there's nothing here. Like it's not a story. And they're like, no, but like we need to go live. And no, it's not a story. So I think also don't be afraid to like stick up for yourself and just have a voice. And I know starting off, like even now, like confidence is something that we're always trying to work on. But don't be afraid to also like get your point across. And also when it comes to ethics like ethics is huge when it comes to journalism, is like, if you feel uncomfortable at a situation, we just went to like a crime scene the other day. And like, I never feel uncomfortable. Like I love uncomfortable situations, which is why we signed up for this, but we didn't feel safe where we were. Like we saw some cars with tinted windows driving around and I was just getting ready for my live shot. And I told my photographer, I was like, hey, like there's a car in front of you. Like just like keep your eyes out. And eventually, like, we felt so uncomfortable. We're like, let's go. Like, and especially like so many people are being targeted in the media recently. And it's like, we felt unsafe and we said like, hey, like I can't go live. And it was literally like 2 minutes before my live shot. And I was like, I don't feel safe. So we just headed out. So just don't be afraid to just like stick up for yourself. And also maybe fight for your stories that you want. It's like, if you know that this event for Latinos is so important, it's like, why does this one get preference over this one? It's like, if you have a story, a really good story that you think that a lot of people deserve to know about it, it's also fight for that story, because we know that there's many issues in the way our storytelling works. Like maybe like diversity is such a big issue that needs improvement. So like, don't be afraid to just stick up for yourself and what you believe.
And building off what Christian said, just sorry, I safety is very important, but the best advice I ever got was from my dad. He said, my perception is my reality, and vice versa. Your perception is your reality. I was on a shoot this past summer. We were at George Floyd Square, and basically someone pulled a gun on me and my crew, and it de-escalated. It was fine. But when that happens, in my mind, first I'm panicking. Second, I'm thinking these people have had camera crews in their neighborhood capitalizing on their pain for a year. And their perception of us is that we're capitalizing on their pain. So I have to realize that I have to customize how I act to their reality and their perceptions. And I think that's also an important, safety thing is, you're realizing that if you're ever in a situation that you're unsafe, first of all, make sure you get safe. And second of all, realize that the people who are upset for a reason, because their perception is their reality.
Thank you all. We probably have time for just one more question. I know everyone is tight on time and have all their jobs and stuff. So if there are any other questions that any of the students have, feel free to ask. Okay. Oh, Kristen, yeah. You're mute. You can unmute.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, I can. Oh, okay. I was trying to think of something really quick because I was well, I was just wondering, would I be able to, for anyone in this panel, would I be able to like get any like maybe their contacts just to like keep in touch with them if anything? If I don't know if they could put them in the chat here, or is that okay? Or
Absolutely. I mean, we have their contact information too. So between Mike
okay.
and I,
Mhm.
we can certainly, if students are looking to get some information or have some additional questions, and then I can connect with the panelists afterwards just to see what the best way to communicate with them would be,
Right.
of course.
Right. And sorry, I actually have to think of a question. I can say it really quickly. I guess for anyone on the panel who I heard, I think might have been doing ABC News, or I think it was Kieran who did Good Morning America. I was just wondering, I guess this is kind of quick. I'm just thinking top of my head. What positions, I guess, do they have again in like I guess news production companies like ABC News or in Good Morning America? Because part of me is interested in that because I'm now in grad school at SHU doing studying in a film and television master program. So I'm just wondering, yeah, sorry, I'm rambling. What the positions are there?
You're just asking for our positions?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, yeah, I'm a producer with Good Morning America.
Right. And I was just wondering, sorry.
I'm a reporter with Channel 3, but I think maybe for your question, there's so many positions that you could go into in the newsroom. I mean, there's a producer, which is what Kieran does, and at least in our station, like they write the whole show, like they write the whole 11 o'clock show. But if you're into the technical part, I mean, there's a director, there's someone that controls audio, make sure like our mics are good. There's the reporter, which is me, like they tell the story. There's on the news side, we have a news desk. They're the people that maybe like when something's breaking, they write it up for online. So there's also like digital positions. So there's really positions like there's so many positions behind the camera, and there's literally like one position in front of the camera, but there's so much work that happens behind the camera that a show wouldn't be a show if it wasn't for those positions. So it really depends on where you want to go. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know.
Oh, okay, thank you. And I saw your contact info as well. So thanks. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. This has been so insightful, and I really think the students got a lot of value out of hearing your stories and the industries that you work in, and we are couldn't be more thankful for you joining us. We will certainly be in touch if anything, other opportunities come up. And for the students, if you do have other questions, we encourage you to reach out to myself or Mike. We'd be happy to provide you with other information moving forward. So again, thank you panelists for joining us. It was great to see you all again, and I wish you well. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
We'll see you later.
Thank you.